Scott,
Yes.
I would like you to ponder, if you
Okay.
will,
Okay.
a creature of myth and legend born from the whispers of ancient winds. It is known as the Thunderbird, a colossal bird-like phantom that soars high above the land, its wings stretching wide like the sky itself. In the realm of Native American folklore, this creature is not just a bird,
It's a plane.
but a harbinger of dark storms. Over time, tales of this legendary beast have drifted into the modern world, leaving behind a trail of curious sightings and strange encounters. Like echoes in a vast canyon, these reports are often dismissed. Hoaxes, they say, or the tricks of nature. But in the shadows of our minds, in the places where reason gives way to wonder, the legend of the Thunderbird endures. As you gaze into the stormy horizon, ask yourself this: is the Thunderbird a mere figment of folklore or a glimpse into the unknown?
Ooh. We'll see on the inside. You are now entering the realm of the freaky deaky, an unsuspecting stop at the crossroads of fantasy and reality, where the frayed edges of make-believe seep into this cookie-cutter white picket world you've been led to believe is far from extraordinary. What you're about to hear are true stories.
Alleged true stories.
Christian, just... okay? Tales of the strange and inexplicable thought only to exist in film and folklore. Although difficult to accept, we do not know everything about this reality, about time or space, what lies beneath the ocean's depths. And try though we might, the unchanging truth remains. There are some things we legitimately cannot explain logically. Folks, welcome back to the Freaky Deaky. As you heard in the opening monologue there, we are touching on Thunderbirds today. Touching all over them. You
I like to touch the Thunderbirds.
Okie dokie.
Touch on them.
Okay.
Have you ever seen the actual, like the jet group, the aerobatics
Thunderbirds,
group?
yeah.
Yeah, you've seen them fly.
Mm-hmm.
Very impressive.
Very impressive.
But their wings don't produce thunder.
But are they more impressive than the Blue Angels?
The paint job's better on the Blue Angels.
It really do be like that. If you are new to the show, we ask one thing of you, and that's that you check it out in its entirety, and if you're a fan of what you hear, you slap a 5-star review on that bad boy. We really do appreciate you guys helping to get the word out. Those reviews go a lot further than you'd think, so thank you for that. And also, be sure to follow us on social media wherever you are at. We are also at that. Some cat in the hat shit right there, huh? You like that? I bet you didn't.
The cat in the hat.
It's at Freaky Deaky Pod wherever. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube, where we are cooking up some magic. We are setting up the desk, getting ready for both Christian and my own solo paranormal short form for the YouTube channel. It's fun stuff, and we're excited to share it with you. So subscribe over there at Freaky Deaky Pod as well. Tell your friends, tell your enemies. Let's get weird. Christian, take it away.
All right, so we're going to start a little close to home for you and I.
Oh, yes?
I happen to find a story that has to do with Alaska.
Oh, I thought you meant our original home.
No, this one's... That's what surprised me.
The stars.
I haven't seen Thunderbirds
In
or
Alaska?
Thunderbird stories in Alaska up until I was looking for stories for this episode.
Interesting. There has been a couple sightings, I think. I remember hearing stories in Eagle River of Baldy or something like that, maybe?
Maybe. I remember there was an episode of one of those monster hunters.
That might be what I'm thinking of.
And they did a whole thing on, I don't know if they called them Thunderbirds, but they were basically Thunderbirds.
And they've been thunderstruck.
You didn't even say it with the right voice.
I was going to, but I didn't want to get copyright infringed.
Do you
because of
even
how
know what
accurate
that
it was? The song? You asked me that about like every old song, and I say yes to all of them because I wouldn't reference things I don't know, Christian.
That's impressive.
Unlike yourself with science. Gotcha. It's okay.
Or yourself with science.
Like science.
Neither one of us are scientists. Neither one of us are scientists. And
Turns out, yeah, we don't know what we're talking about.
And we did
across the
not
board.
stay at a Holiday Inn. They
So
do not
that's even
sponsor
worse.
us. So until they do, we do
Bleep
not.
it.
Yeah. Anyway, near the end of the 19th century, this is going to be around 1881, 1883, or to 1883, a Norwegian ethnologist, Johan Adrian Jacobsen, was part of an effort by the Royal Berlin Ethnological Museum to collect as many non-European artifacts as possible before the people of those cultures were able to have enough power to stop the looting.
Oh. Well, isn't that nice?
I think there are people that have done full podcast on
Just this guy?
the looted artifacts from around the world. Anyway, we won't talk about that here.
That sounds very fascinating, though.
Jacobson, I mean, it
makes sense, but it also sounds like, I'm like, oh, I've never heard too much into that.
There's a lot of it. There's a big argument going on right now.
Oh, wow.
Because the museums around the world are filled with looted objects.
Yeah, where are the bones? The Smithsonian? We're waiting. Don't worry, I got them.
There were never any bones.
Okay.
Jacobson was in Alaska, traveling through Alaskan native lands, searching for anything that the museum may want. Or a fellow searcher named Edward William Nelson had a head start and seemed to be getting all the glory. Nelson was an American who provided many artifacts to the legendary and sometimes considered scandalous Smithsonian institution.
Hell yeah. Where are those bones, damn it?
Edward Nelson had among his specimens, I'm going to tell you right now, the bones of a giant bird.
They were there the whole time. We knew it. Guys, celebratory slow clap. Okay, we're done.
Yeah. A bird that was feared by native Alaskans who had lost family and friends to this man-eating creature.
He's a man-eater.
So we're going to start with Johann Jacobson. I might butcher some names. We say this every time, especially with Alaska natives.
You know
names.
what you're getting into at this point, you know?
Yeah. I'm sorry if I butcher the names.
It's fine.
I'm from California.
We aren't these people.
He was near Nunalinak when he came to a place that was important to his companions. His mates were Alaska natives, but this, of course, was before there was an Alaskan.
Okay.
He wrote about it in German. Gegen sieben kommen wir zu ein... Sorry.
Nailing it so far.
Towards 7 o'clock, we came to a mythological site where this is not me saying it, so I put it in quotes, Indians.
Uh-oh. Christian.
This is the
How could you?
It's the 1800s.
It takes 2 seconds to change a word, Christian. Everyone is shaking in their boots right now. You've triggered everyone.
It's not, you know what?
Nobody grasps context. Get it out of here. It's fine.
Anyway, they insisted on taking a side trip to see the place where a giant bird lived to attack adults and carry them to its nest as food for its children. I was assured that on a nearby mountaintop were the remains of the nest and even bones that I would want to collect.
Weird.
I was convinced and pitched our tent for the night, then engaged a young native to take me to the next village to the side of the nest. By a forced march, we reached the 15 to 1,800 foot high mountaintop, which we could recognize from the distance as a steep tower-like structure. Because of my past climbing experience, I succeeded in ascending the 30-foot high rock that was supposed to be the nest of the giant bird, but there was not a sign of anything in it. However, the view of the landscape from here was worth the effort.
Wow.
I mean, we live in Alaska. The views are spectacular.
You can walk outside and the views are fine. You don't got to climb anything, trust me.
Yeah. An endless fine veil of golden fog was lying on the land between the Yukon and the Kuskokwim rivers. I'm sure I said it wrong.
Are you sure? That sounded great.
Yeah. While the small waterways and lakes lay on the land like a net. As darkness began to settle in, Jacobson and his party descended the mountain and headed back to their boat on the bank of presumably the Yukon River. He continued, my presence had become known, and a number of people gathered and discussed my trip up the mountain with great eagerness. Their faith in the presence of this bird was not shaken by my not finding it, and some of the older ones insisted that in their youth they had seen the giant bird with their own eyes. It was also said that an Eskimo found the leg bones.
I'm sorry, a what?
An Eskimo. Now, we're using 1800s language.
Looking for context.
Yes. So anyway, this person found the leg bones of an unusually large bird and gave them to a traveling scholar. We heard about that traveling scholar earlier.
Weird flex.
This was supposed to have been Mr. Nelson, who was collecting again for the Smithsonian Institution.
Classic man with 3 first names.
Edward William Nelson wrote an account called The Last of the Thunderbirds. Though in earlier writings, he felt the big birds might have just been large eagles.
Wow. A little anticlimactic there, but it's fine, I guess. Thanks.
Do you
Edward.
remember this? That little part reminds me of a couple weeks ago. I was looking out the window at work and I saw this huge bird. And I remember telling you, I was thinking about calling you to see if you could see it.
Yeah. Also in that text, you said, I believe everything you've ever said now.
I did not say that.
It all comes together as one.
That was the Ouija board demon from last week.
Yes, of course.
But either way, Birds are big here, though. Not Thunderbird big, but they're big.
You guys like big birds? What about Big Bird?
I like big birds sometimes.
Okay.
So anyway, the story is current among Alaskan natives along the lower Yukon and neighboring coast. Now, current, I think we're talking current, the end of the 19th century.
Okay.
In ancient times, there were eagles of tremendous size frequenting the tops of the highest mountains in my large head. Yeah, in the interior, and preying upon whales and full-grown reindeer, and even upon men.
I bet the whales are glad that's over with. They're like, no, we're the big dogs again.
In Alaska, most people think about whales as like the big blue whales or whatever.
That's what I was thinking, yes.
We have a lot of whales in Alaska that aren't quite that big. They're still pretty big.
Investors, no doubt.
So if a bird's gonna, those kind. If the birds are gonna pick up a whale,
they gotta be pretty big.
I mean, just imagine a dolphin. If a bird could pick up a dolphin, that's not even as big as a whale. That's pretty impressive.
Wow.
I've never seen a bird that big.
If you can't imagine that, picture it picking up some Lego bricks off the floor. That's nowhere near the size of a whale.
No.
So picture it much larger.
A volcanic crater of very regular outline situated upon the summit of a mountain near the lower Yukon. It was pointed out to me, this was the Nelson guy, as the nest of the ancient Mutugawik.
Pardon me?
Mutugawik.
Okay.
Around the rim of the crater are differently colored stone, which the natives claim were gathered by the birds to ornament their nest. When the birds sat here, overlooking the Yukon on the one side, see far away on to the horizon on the other, their screams could be heard for miles. And many luckless creatures were caught in their talons and carried swiftly to their eyrie, and were there torn into fragments to be devoured.
Okay.
Year after year, these birds remained until men were afraid to go out on the broad bosom of the Yukon for fear of being caught by these evil guardians of the mountains overlooking their village.
Did you say bosom?
Yes.
Okay.
Late 19th century writing, because I am taking, from what I understand, a direct quote from Nelson.
Gotcha. Not bosom, though.
No, not bosom. I mean, the bosoms might have been different back then.
Wow.
Or
Such
maybe
a
not.
weird turn.
Maybe not. That's why Edward Nelson's using them, because he hadn't seen any bosoms
I
in a
bet
while.
Edward Nelson's using them. All right. That
Yeah.
pervert.
Each year the young were raised and flew away. None knew where they went. There were never more than 2 birds inhabiting these mountains.
There was never more than 2.
Right. Because the chicks, or whatever you call these baby birds,
These little chicks.
would fly
They were
away.
probably gigantic. Man, so they just populating the whole Thunderbird. Wow.
Yeah.
You'd think we'd see a lot more of them then if that was the case.
I mean, if they existed, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I forgot about that part.
So Nelson shares this intense native story about a legendary hunter whose wife gets snatched by one of these giant eagles. She was filling her bucket at the river when it happened.
I bet she was filling her bucket at the river, Christian.
Stop it. And the eagle swooped down, grabbed her, and took her to feed its nestlings.
Sad end to that.
The hunter, heartbroken and furious, grabs his best bow and arrows, ready for revenge. He climbs the mountain, and at the top,
He gets eaten.
he finds this massive nest. Nelson wrote, all about were strewn fragments of men and animals, among which were seen the frames of many kayaks. Suddenly, the giant female eagle dives at him. He fires an arrow right into her side, and down the mountain she goes. Next, he turns his bow on her brood. Just when he thinks he's done, the even more terrifying male eagle attacks. He hits it with several arrows, but the eagle escapes, flying off to the north.
So, fuck my family. I'm out.
That's the same direction the young eagles fly every fall. With the nesting pair gone, these monster birds were never seen again. People were able to finally hunt along the Yukon River without fear of being carried off in these massive talons. Nelson ends the story by saying that the villagers visited the nest later with their hero, finding lots of remains from friends who'd perished. Even years later, pieces of kayaks were still there. This tale is strongly believed by the natives of the lower Yukon and nearby seacoast, and the bald eagle is known by the name from their legend. I'm not sure, but one thing, this is an ethnographer or whatever they called him earlier, writing a long time ago, saying that this is what everybody believes. I remember bringing up the Kushtaka.
Kushtaka, yes.
To an Alaskan native, and they're like, what? I've never heard of that.
Really?
So, who's to say
You
whether...
said, well, hey, let me educate you on this then.
Yeah, I mean, I can't educate somebody that's lived here all their life and been raised on Alaska Native stories like this person was, and had, maybe they just hadn't heard about them. But sometimes these people back in the day would say things that indigenous populations across the world may or may not have said. It's hard to tell.
Interesting. Hot take. And what you're doing is you're saying, look here, natives, these are my stories now, not yours. You don't believe them anymore. It's me.
I mean, stranger things have happened.
Stranger things have happened.
So smallpox took a devastating toll on Native Alaskans.
What a weird turn that was.
Yeah. An epidemic in the 1830s wiped out entire villages and killed 2/3 of the native population of the lower Yukon. This lost history has made it difficult to pinpoint the mountain that this Thunderbird lived on. If it could be found, there might still be some evidence remaining. Bend Mountain, along with Mount Pilcher, are potential candidates. Yupik people in the area say that the nest sat atop Mount Pilcher. This same mountain is said to be the home of Alaska's fairies.
Oh.
In Yukon. Nelson has said that he learned from Native Alaskans that the Thunderbird's nest was in the crater of an old volcano.
Not a great spot, turns out.
And I'll have to send you a piece of art.
Oh.
That depicts a Thunderbird carrying away a caribou and a man in a kayak.
That's quite a lot of legwork for those talons.
Oh, shit.
Oh, damn it, Christian. Did you delete the whole episode?
No, I just touched it.
Wow, weird.
And it scrolled. It's not weird. We talk about this all the time. Superior brain capacity. Now, while the bones of this large bird, of course, never made it to the Smithsonian.
Were they hollow?
I mean, it's a bird. It probably would have had to be a
Got
bird.
him.
Yeah.
We got him. He believes now.
So, but this depiction went to the Smithsonian. The specimen in question could have been a muskox horn.
What?
That washed ashore and was believed to be a Talon by the locals at the time.
Oh, I got you.
Muskox. I can't.
Muskox? It is a muskox, is it not?
Before I move on, I'd like to mention a couple birds that are large.
Hey, guys. Before we get back to the Thunderbird episode, I'd like to also touch on some other large birds.
The harpy eagle.
And let me guess, the heron, right?
Well, didn't we talk about the heron in another episode?
Man.
Okay, that's what it was. So the wingspan of the harpy eagle is up to 7 feet.
That's a pretty large bird.
Yeah. The Andean condor doesn't live anywhere near Alaska, but their wingspan is 10.5 feet. And for our British or overseas listeners,
here we go.
3.2 meters.
How many centimeters?
However many centimeters are in 3.2 meters.
Oh, yeah, I guess that makes sense, huh? The math does check out.
Yeah. The Californian condor wingspan, 10 feet. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I have a nice list. There's a lot of them.
I mean, that's a lot larger than even the Bakersfield condor's wingspan, which is around probably 6.5.
Bakersfield condors are a minor league team.
And their wingspan is probably around 6.5.
They will,
on average.
Yeah, I guess you could call the length their arms. Yeah.
Hey,
You're
if
right.
we're going to cover large birds, condors no less, I'm getting it.
Yeah, I'm going to skip through some of the other ones, but you get the picture. There are some large birds.
There are some large birds. Even bald eagles are pretty freaking large, dude. Like you see them flying, you're like, damn, that thing is huge.
That's what I saw that day, I think, was a bald eagle.
That would make sense, yeah.
And it was huge from like what seemed like a couple miles away.
Okay, well then I guess you did see a thunderbird. Maybe I am mistaken.
There is the name of this next bird, Goliath heron.
Well, I think we figured it out.
So
was it taken down by a David heron, perhaps?
It might have been. Or so
here we go.
The local biblical traditions take.
Of course.
Anyway, I do have a couple stories from other people that I found.
Well, let's get it, man. Let's dive into that juicy, hot Thunderbird goss, you know?
Yes, this one comes from White Wren 010.
A little racist, but I'll take it.
Do you know what a wren is?
Yes, WREN?
Yeah.
Christian, you ask me if I know what a lot of things are. Do you take me as someone that is stupid? How dare you? I just play a stupid guy on a podcast.
Not publicly.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay, so Thunderbirds are part of Native American myth. My great-grandmother used to tell me about shadows high in the sky usually above a thundercloud. Tornadoes and bad storms were blamed on thunderbirds. According to some myths, they were so big they blocked the sun completely.
It's like 9/11.
No, like
Like science.
like King Leonidas fighting the Persians.
Okay.
When they're gonna fight, they're gonna send so many arrows that it'll blot
Block out the sun.
Yeah.
Hey, do I know what King Leonidas is, though?
You never watched 300?
Yes, I was... Okay, never mind. I was making a reference to 30 seconds ago,
Oh, okay.
but it's fine.
Oh, I get
The
it.
moment has passed. Yeah.
I get it.
Ah.
Knee slapper. Many people see these mythical birds as a bad omen.
That would check out.
They cannot be mistaken for any living thing within this reality, and they're said to be similar to the Fae.
Wait, don't they... This might sound really stupid and ignorant, but don't they ride them? I'm thinking of Lord of the Rings when the hobbits rode the big eagles.
When Gandalf
totally
came flying
swing and
in.
miss on that one. I was like, I vaguely remember tiny things riding giant eagles.
I recently read something about that scene from Lord of the Rings, or in the book probably,
Really, that
where
would make
Gandalf
sense.
brought an extra eagle for Gollum because he
Wow.
wanted to try to save him.
Wholesome. He shouldn't have. Gollum was creepy as hell.
He was a fun character though.
Okay,
He was missing in The Hobbit,
he was.
like, because he was there but not as much.
Oh, gotcha.
And I think in the book he wasn't even there. Anyway, the next one's going to go by, or the next story comes from the Smooth Operator 21.
Oh yeah,
Smooth Operator is a great song by Sade from back in the day. Not that SADA, but she was in the 80s and 90s, I think.
Gotcha. For the record, that's pronounced Sada. But that's
No, she says it's Sade. She's from Africa or
fine. Okay.
Middle East or something.
My name is now Scout. You happy?
Scout, like
Scout.
Kill a Mockingbird.
Scout. Spelled
Okay.
the exact same. Scout. You're welcome.
My name is Christian.
We make our own rules here.
Yeah.
And apparently all over the globe.
Anyway,
Scout out.
the Smooth Operator says, I used to live beside a few Aida, this is an indigenous group from the Philippines. When I was living in the Philippines, they told me so many stories about how their grandparents used to fight off giant reticulated pythons. But one story stuck with me the most. It was the story of how a teen boy was killed by a giant Philippine eagle. Mind you, these people stand usually below 5 feet, so a regular sized python or eagle might be giant to them.
Wow.
I'm sorry, man.
Wow.
I'm
Heightest.
I'm a little taller than that. Not quite 6 feet.
Yeah, you're like what, 5'4" or something.
But a giant python is a giant python.
That is true.
And it doesn't even have to be bigger than me to be considered a giant python in my mind. It's a snake.
Yeah.
I don't like snakes.
Can you imagine? Your daughter is 5 foot. Can you imagine her and I both saying the same thing and coming to you and being like, I'd be like, Christian, I saw this. It was a decent sized snake, I guess, when we were out for a walk. And she comes back. She's like, I think I saw a giant snake in the hills. That's the equivalent of that 11 inches difference.
Yeah. So either way.
Giant or big.
Anyway, the person who told me the story said it was during his grandfather's time, and that one day when they were out foraging, one of the teens from the group was suddenly plucked from the ground by a giant eagle. The bird carried the teen for about 12 feet, then dropped him on a rocky outcrop, causing him to hit his head and die.
That happens.
Which I've seen. There are birds out there that'll pick up like
Fish
nuts
and stuff like that too.
they'll drop it from a high place to like a nut or an egg to break it open. But
yeah, kind of lazy, but all right.
apparently it was hard for them to get to the boy from where they were at the time. But when they finally got to him, they found that he was missing his eyes, tongue, and arm. That's about all the story, but that's still pretty crazy.
The end. No, you're like, oh, well, was he okay? No,
I mean,
that's pretty dark.
a bird that would be big enough to pick up even a small or smaller statured human is still pretty fucking big.
Yeah.
Like none of us have ever seen that bird.
I know. There's stories of like eagles and whatnot, like picking up small dogs and shit like that, or even owls, like picking up dogs.
I've seen that. I've seen
definitely not a human being. No.
Yeah. The craziest thing I've seen is an eagle knocking goats off the side of a hill. I think it was an eagle, maybe a hawk, but
Pretty messed up, eagle.
yeah, like mountain goats that are really good on hills. They'll knock them off a hill and then go.
Well, yeah, all you got to do is fly into it.
Yeah. No, it wasn't that. It was
Really?
pretty. It was
I
pretty
would
crazy.
assume that you just try to knock. I mean, I guess they got hella good balance, but
Yeah, and Then they would, once the thing went that long distance and was dead, it was dinner. This next one comes from a Aware Veterinarian, 536. There was a Thunderbird, it says Territorn bird, seen by, that's in parentheses, so I'm assuming that's just another name for it.
Yeah.
This bird was seen by at least 2 people in the backyard of a neighborhood in Maine in the 1990s. He was sitting on a huge branch of a tree near one person's porch who came outside to look up at the incredibly giant creature. It flew up and swooped down on the person stooping on the ground in the next house over. The first person spotting this 6-foot-tall bird with a wingspan the length of a house at close range ran towards the stooping person, waving their arms and yelling. Neither person knew the name of this giant black crow swooping down and then flying off. There was no mistaking his crow features, and it was definitely not a condor. The bird was bigger than both people put together. Condors have different legs and different heads. We suspected it might be carnivorous. After looking at many pictures, the only one that looked like it and fit the description was the Territorn bird. You know, I think that's the bird that's in that old picture we talked about, I think during the Lake Elizabeth, the demon in the Lake Elizabeth Lake, that they found like in Tombstone or in Arizona, and supposedly took a picture of it that they've never been able to figure out where the picture came from.
Yeah, that is a very large bird.
What are your thoughts so far? Do you think there is a Thunderbird?
I think it's definitely possible. I've heard all kinds of stories over the years with, even dinosaurs like pterodactyls and shit, where people are like, I swear I saw this gigantic, what looked like a pterodactyl. You know, that could easily be a gigantic bird that is just hanging out somewhere.
I'm with the birds, the Thunderbirds, I'm a little bit closer to like Bigfoot, where like, yeah, maybe they did exist. I'm not sure they do anymore.
It's for the birds.
Yeah. Now I'm going to read something that I don't really remember why I put it in here.
Okay.
But there must have been a good reason. This comes from pnsn.org, which is Pacific Northwest Seismic Network, which I don't understand how they're involved with the Thunderbird story.
Earthquakes when they flap their wings.
I guess so. The title of this comes across here is Thunderbird Turns People to Stone. And this is told by Luke Hobucket. A man was living at Beaver Prairie. He was an elk hunter. He went off hunting very early one morning, but soon he came back. He told the people, I saw a very large bird sitting just a little way above the ground in a tree. That was a Thunderbird. Here's a feather that I took from the Thunderbird's wing. The feather was as long as a canoe paddle. He had to bend it in order to put it into his arrow quiver when he brought it home with him. After he showed the feather to the people, he said, I also saw a very big whale on the prairie. It had been carried there by the Thunderbird. Thunderbird was resting in the tree because the whale was so heavy.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, it's quite the feat.
Yeah, for sure. The man sent word to all the Quillette people living at the mouth of the river. Come up, we will cut up the whale. He is so large that the Thunderbird cannot carry him further. All the beach and river natives came at once to the prairie. There were from 3 to 6 people in each whaling canoe. They came.
You know that Thunderbird pissed as hell watching this happen. Like, I'm so exhausted. I can't take this anymore. And look at these people taking my kill.
Was he thinking that, or he's like, go ahead.
He's like, I know his feast that just walked upon my other feast.
Yeah, I know where to find you guys now. I'll just follow you home. And they came to cut up the whale. When they reached that place, whale was lying there dead in the lower part of the prairie. It was just as the man had said. The people began to measure off the parts each wanted. One family took the saddle, another family took the head. In this fashion, they divided the whole whale. By evening, they had it all cut in pieces. All over the ground, pieces of blubber were piled.
Gross, but okay.
It was evening. The people were hungry. They cooked some of the whale meat and ate it. It tasted all right. It was good to eat. It got dark, and the clouds overhead became very black. Thunderbird was coming back. He was very angry because these motherfuckers stole his food. The story says the people had stolen his food.
Oh, but you got to make it spicy.
Yeah. It began to rain a little, not so much at first. Then the rain changed to hail. The hail was larger than a man's fist. It killed and mangled all the people there on the prairie. And these were all the people that Thunderbird was mad at. And he was mad, of course, because they had taken his dinner, which was a whale. After the storm, all those people were turned into stone. All the meat and the blubber that they had piled there was turned into stone. Thus a ridge was made of great rock blocks from one end of the prairie to the other. The ridge is still there today. Even whale's ribs and his great head may still be seen.
Wow.
I mean, that's a fun story.
Very interesting.
Kind of sounds like a way that, ancient people maybe explained a rock formation.
Wow.
But also, if there was a bird large enough to carry a whale, there may be some basis in some of this story.
Hmm.
And
Very true.
and we know for a fact that
People have been turned to stone in the past.
theoretically, if they met Medusa, but we know
And
for
also-
a fact that there were large creatures flying through the air that could have probably picked up a small whale.
I don't know. I think it's somewhat insulting that you'd say ancient people were trying to be like, this is what makes sense for the rock formation. So anyway, this big bird dropped a whale out here. Bunch of nomad Neanderthal assholes ran over.
Have you ever heard of the sleeping lady?
I have.
The local
And-
one?
And we don't know. Well, I've heard of many sleeping ladies,
The
Christian.
one that's a mountain here?
Yes.
Okay.
And we're not convinced it's not a sleeping lady.
I'm
Christian, how
convinced.
dare you?
I'm convinced. I would lose my skeptic card if I was ever convinced that was a sleeping lady. Could have been a giant.
That's exactly where we're going with that. Where are the bones, Smithsonian?
If I had a button, that would
Bring
be
'em back.
Scott's phrase. Could have been a giant.
Well, when I struggle with my,
Superior brain capacity.
it's hard not to make sense. It just happens.
This next story is about a Thunderbird that caused a flood.
Wow.
And some of these are probably considered myths
Hmm.
or legend, but
Sure.
we always talk about there tends to be some form of truth in there. It might be small in
Yes.
your beliefs. It might be large. I don't know.
Okay. Thank you for telling me my beliefs.
Mansplaining.
Classic you, really.
Thunderbird was very angry one time.
That
Thunderbird
checks
has a
out.
temper.
That checks out.
He caused the ocean to rise. When the water began to cover things, I feel like we already talked about the Quillet.
We have.
This one says Quiet, kind of spelled the same way. So maybe it's the same thing, just
Without an L.
old, people in the past sometimes didn't always spell things right.
Yeah, let's tell them they're wrong.
It was
Not
all those
spelling their
people that
things.
as you were growing up, like, just sound it out. And then you came across all
Yeah.
those words that did not work.
Yeah. Hooked on a lie, more like.
So either way, these Aboriginal people or indigenous people got in their boats. The water rose for 4 days. They rose until the very tops of the mountains. What story does this sound like to you?
Jars of Clay made a song that sounds somewhat similar to that.
Jars of Clay. Wow.
What a throwback.
Yeah.
Man. What a hit, honestly.
They actually, I don't know if it's the same song. They did have a good song.
Yeah. That was a great song, Christian. You're right.
Oh, okay. I just figured out that word earlier was misspelled. The Quillet in their boats sailed wherever the wind currents carried them. They had no way to direct themselves. There was no sun. There was no land. For 4 days, the water receded. I was going to say this sounds like the flood myth
The flood myth. Beautiful.
or story, whatever you want to call
very
it.
insulting today, Christian. You're just very saucy at people.
Well, the flood myth is
Yeah.
considered a myth because it takes place at different times in different parts of the world, according to ancient societies and what they wrote down.
and according
That's
to,
all we have historically to go by.
Sure. Whatever
know,
you say, Christian, you have
faith-
all the answers.
Faithfully, it might be different.
Tons of
I don't know
very
if I could
smart
use-
people have dedicated their lives to this, but
I
it's
don't know
fine.
if I could use faithfully quite here. No, but
It's a little sacrilege
I mean,
when it comes out of your mouth. That's fine.
the flood myth, there have been many floods or floods that can be considered great.
Hey, folks, we're back.
Yeah.
We're
So
back.
I'll stick with that.
We're so back.
There was definitely large floods.
That did happen. You touched it again. Damn it, Christian.
Trauma. Oh, okay. I didn't go too far either time, luckily.
Beautiful.
Where the fuck was I?
You're trying to explain
Okay.
to me how everything I believe is wrong.
So for 4 days, the water receded, but now the people were much scattered. When they reached land, some of the people were at Ho, H-O-H. So they lived there from that time on. Others landed at Chimacum and stayed there. Only a few succeeded in finding their way back to Quillet. So this one really does feel like,
A folk tale?
no, like the indigenous people in this region experienced what would be considered the Great Flood, which they would have,
Mm.
right? If there was
I
a Great
believe
Flood
everyone would, yes.
and they were in North America at the time,
When-
according to the legend, they would have experienced it.
Wherever people were at,
They were flooded.
they were flooded. Yes,
Yeah.
Christian, that is the idea.
And science actually can back you up to a certain extent.
Hey, isn't that something? Thanks, science. We needed your approval the whole time.
I mean, this isn't any Noah's Ark on Mount Ararat.
But actually,
Call back to that one
That's a
argument.
callback to a story that recently this year turns out. There's another, I don't know if it's Ararat,
Another
but
fake person trying to say that it's on Mount Ararat.
You should look into this story. I haven't, but you should check it out. I know it's something. I know it's something earlier this year. There was some claim that came out.
Send me the link.
Yeah, if I could find it, I will, Christian.
This next story says it comes from answersingenesis.org.
What? Ken Ham? No fucking way, Christian. Wow, you're really coming around.
We're in the American Southwest. While exploring the Sonora Desert on the 12th of February, 1699, Captain Juan Mateo Monwe,
Nice.
I think that's how you say
Nailed it.
accompanied by Jesuits Eusebio, Francisco Kino, and Adamo Gil, kind of a cool name.
Adamo Gil?
The Adamo part, was told by the Pima Indians that a giant monster lived in a nearby cave in days past. It was a menace to the Pima because it would fly around and catch as many natives as it could eat. There are many stories suggesting that the American Indians may have a long history encountering creatures reminiscent of
A Thunderbird.
pterosaurs.
I was going to say that, but then I was like, no, this feels like a red herring for me. I'm going to... It's fine.
One day after the creature had eaten its fill, some natives followed it back to its cave. When it was sound asleep, they closed the entrance of the cave with wood collected for this occasion and then set it on fire. The creature couldn't escape, growling fiercely, died as it was asphyxiated by the flames and smoke. Okay. First off, Ken Ham is ridiculous in my eyes.
Did Ken Ham write the article?
I don't think
Probably
so.
not. Yeah.
I don't think so. Whatever. But either the pterosaur thing was kind of interesting.
Very interesting indeed, yes.
Of course, there have been reports of pterosaurs throughout time, even though that's impossible.
Sure, yeah. I mean, who could report something that doesn't exist?
But that's not where I have the biggest problem with the story.
Oh, no.
The ending of this creature is exactly the same as the ending of another creature we did a while back.
Giants.
Yeah. It's exactly
Why
that.
do you say creature like they don't have souls, Christian? Just kidding. Who
I mean,
knows?
it's just...
Yeah.
And I've heard that.
That's the move, though, man. What else are you going to do? You're going to fire missiles at it? This is the old days.
You know, maybe this is information that traveled with the indigenous populations when they came over from Asia.
Like, hey, you want to get rid of something? Trap it in a cave and light it on fire.
Tens of thousands of years ago. Maybe that was just a normal occurrence. Maybe that's how they took out the saber-toothed tigers and the cave bears
that way. Why not everything else?
And the American lion that no
if it
longer
ain't
exists.
broke, don't fix it. You know,
Could be.
It works, folks. Get out there and start burning things in caves.
Or it could just be like the same thing they do with movies. It's the same movie over and over again because whoever wrote that article didn't have a very novel way of writing. Anyway,
now that you're done judging them into the ground, can we continue?
Yeah. The Sioux Indians tell a story about an experience some of their warriors had with a Thunderbird that perfectly fits the description of the pteranodon. The pteranodon.
Pteranodon? Oh, nice.
One day, long ago, before the white man came to America.
Oh, here we go. Christian, I know you put that in there. You racist man.
I'm pretty sure I didn't. A party of Sioux Indian warriors were out hunting. They left their village far behind before they realized it. The group of raves. Yes.
They're coming for us. No.
Where's my LSD?
Oh, no. It's Molly these days, Christian.
Not in my days, man.
Actually, it's probably not these days. What the fuck do I know? I've never gone to a rave.
Me neither.
I smoke a little weed and I'm like, ooh, someone's an edgelord. It's fine.
They had left their village far behind. Before they realized it, the group of braves found themselves alone in the bare and rocky badlands of the West.
Did you say it again? Did you say raves again?
I don't know.
You said a group of raves. Damn it, Christian.
Better than a group of wraiths or rakes.
There's many things in that same, yeah.
Suddenly the sky darkened. There was a clap of thunder that shook the earth. Looking up in terror, the natives thought they saw the shape of a giant bird falling to earth. The band of hunters traveled over the Badlands for days until they came at last to the spot where they thought the giant bird had fallen. Nothing was left of the terrible creature but bones.
But an outline in the sand where the lightning struck.
Kind of like Wile E. Coyote after he falls off a cliff.
That happens, yeah. They got to draw inspiration from somewhere, okay?
Like the cave story and the burning of the monster.
Yes, of course.
The natives shuddered as they looked at the monster's skeleton. The bird had fallen so hard they thought that its bones were partly sunk in the earth. You were correct.
Would you
Wile E.
look at
Coyote
that?
it was. But the Braves with a B could see that its wingspan was as big as 4 tall men standing on top of one another.
Is that how they measured it? Like, you get on top of this person, you on top of them, and you in the back. Get over here.
Where do you think we get the explanation of foot from?
I think it's probably from people's feet.
Yeah, that's just the way it was done before we had a ruler and before we left the metric system.
Okay.
The strange creature had fierce claws on its wings as well as on its feet. So that's definitely not an eagle. And the beak was long and sharp. There was a long bony crest on its head. Remind me to stop and we got to talk about the story after
Talk
it's
about a
done.
bony crest, my favorite.
The natives knew that they had never seen a bird like it before. What was it? Oh, we were going to talk about this.
That was literally 10 seconds ago.
Yeah.
You said that. It's weird that you forgot already.
I've been trying to focus on what I'm reading lately a little bit better so you don't have to edit it so hard.
I appreciate that, Christian. I
Yeah,
do.
so sometimes
You a real one, man.
the memory is secondary because it's written words. I can go back if I need to.
There
But
you go.
one possible explanation for this description, aside from there actually being a pterosaur or a dinosaur that should not be existing millions of years later,
That's what you'd think.
hundreds of millions of years later.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So many millions of years later, man.
Yeah,
We can't
either
even
way,
keep track anymore. So
move
many
on.
millions.
Moving on,
There's-
there is an explanation for this.
Hmm.
Not necessarily my explanation, but it's a similar one that I've heard for like ancients believing in the existence of giants.
Mhm.
They saw fossils.
Hey, there you go.
So I don't know. Anyway, we're going to talk about the Piazza.
I almost talked about this in the dinosaur episode.
Did you?
I might have talked about it.
I don't remember. So if you heard
Yeah.
this before,
I don't think I did. I think it was one of the things I left out.
Okay.
But maybe not. Who knows? I can't remember my own name half the time. So sorry about that.
I could have sworn like maybe it wasn't 10 seconds
It
ago,
was Scout.
but a minute ago you were ripping me for that very same thing.
Yeah, well, I can dish it out and take it, turns
Yeah,
out.
I
So
guess
there
so.
you go. You're welcome.
In the Midwest, the
The Alaskan. No.
the Illini Indian of Illinois. You've heard of the Fighting Illini?
Illini?
No, there's a college. That's their mascot.
The Fighting Illini?
I think that's what. Maybe it's not that anymore.
I can honestly say I've never heard that before in my life.
I used to watch college football and stuff, so maybe that's why I
Oh,
know.
Look at you being all hip and whatnot.
So, anyway, this were in Illinois, and they were once terrorized by a creature they call Piasa. Piazza. I mean, it's
Mike
not can't
Piazza, the old
can't-
Mets.
be Mets.
Isn't the Mets? He was the Mets, right? He was the catcher for the Mets for a while.
Who was he a catcher for before that?
Yankees?
And who?
No, Dodgers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I
think-
remember from the Mets. But anyways, the old catcher from the Mets was flying over terrorizing people.
Dude,
Next story? No.
I'm sorry. We got to stop here for a second.
Okay.
Mike Piazza,
Yes.
who once played for the Dodgers,
The pizza man. Yeah.
was traded to the Mets on the very day
So you got to see them.
Scott's wife,
Okay.
my daughter, was
Yes.
supposed to go to a Dodger game to watch her favorite player, Mike Piazza, play.
That's a classic. Got him from the Lord. That's it.
I don't remember
Yeah.
how old she was, but
But she was heartbroken.
there were tears.
I cried when Gretzky retired and I was 9. So
Yeah, so
I
you
was
get it.
clinging onto my Gretzky stuffed animal like, no, please, the great one, stop.
That's kind of. I can't believe that we got that story out on
Believe it.
on
It
a
happened.
Thunderbird.
There's a lot of weird stories like that.
The Piazza was so large that it could carry off a fully grown deer. When it finally acquired a taste for human flesh, no
Oh,
native
yeah.
was safe. The Illini, as well as other Indian tribes in the area, greatly feared the Piazza and sought to destroy it. One day, the Illini were said to have tricked the Piazza by hiding 20 armed warriors in a designated spot, while the chief chose to stand in an open view as a victim for it. When the bird was about to pounce upon the chief, the warriors leapt out and speared it to death.
Got him.
John Russell, this was written by John Russell, was a writer who had great interest in the Piazza. And in 1848, Mr. Russell explored the caves where this creature was said to live. One cave that was extremely difficult to access yielded
The best results, no doubt.
evidence for the Illini story. Russell stated that the shape of the cave was irregular, but so far as I could judge, the bottom would average 20 to 30 feet. The floor of the cave, throughout its whole extent, was one mass of human bones.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
The entire cave, the entire floor cave floor was human bones.
Yeah, but there's
That's some dragon lore shit right there,
it
man.
is,
That's
but it's also.
was there gold coins next to him?
I mean, Smaug may have been in the area, and they might have
And
made it.
Benedict Cumberbatch was like, "Ooh,
Yeah. And his sexy British
Wow,
voice
and there it
was like, "Give me your gold, Native
Okay.
Americans."
That is pretty wild, man.
Supposedly, there was a painting of the Piazza made by the Illini, but it was destroyed in the 1850s when the face of the cliff collapsed into the river.
Oh man.
However, many explorers during the 17th and 18th centuries saw the painting and described it in great details in their journals. These explorers describe a bird-like creature with many reptilian characteristics.
Well, would you look at that? Lizard people. Just kidding. Lizard birds. A dragon. Can we call it? It's a dragon.
No.
It's a dragon.
No.
It was a dragon, folks. That's why I should have left it in the episode. Turns out it was actually a dragon.
No. It's a Piazza. Traded to the Mets.
That's
Breaking
what
the heart
it's
of my daughter.
Yeah, that happens sometimes, you know.
All right. That might have been from Legend or Lie by Martha Serta, Guy Atchley, Alfonso Shahakan.
Excuse me, how many names does that guy need?
I
Wait,
think
or
it's
girl?
different names.
Elizabeth, Rye, Tobacco, Mahagan.
Something like that.
Okay. Toboggan, sorry.
I have one more little tidbit here before we discuss a little.
Okay.
The Tombstone Thunderbird, which I believe we mentioned earlier.
Of course we have, yes.
This is a supposed black and white photo of gunslingers pictured with a pterosaur type of creature. So it's a different one because there is a picture with the pterosaur looking thing. I was thinking about the one that looked like a kind of a big crow.
That was what I was thinking
vulture,
of too.
maybe.
Was it vulture? I was
One-
picturing crow.
One of the two. I mean,
Like, yeah, who
unless you
knows?
see the head sometimes. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't look alike.
Yeah, maybe we're wrong.
I only look
We're
at
just gonna
small
throw that out
birds
there.
at my bird feeder.
Surprisingly enough, a Thunderbird hasn't landed at your bird feeder
Yeah.
for nourishment.
And we had a lot of rain. No Thunderbird.
Wow.
This was on April 26, 1890. The Tombstone Epitaph published an incredible article of 6 gunslingers who had shot the Tombstone Thunderbird right out of the sky.
Can you picture that? A bunch of weird dudes with revolvers.
Half drunk.
Yeah. We got him. We got him, boys.
This is a tale from an old cowboy. There's one strange thread to the story that leaves some plausibility to it. It was back in the 30s or 40s, 1930s or 40s. I don't know if this one fits, but we're going to go with it. And if it doesn't, we just won't go with it. They held it would have been their Hell Dorado celebrations.
They're El Dorado?
Hell.
El Dorado. Very nice. Wordplay.
There was one old cowboy there, and he decided to speak out. And he told reporters that he was one of the ranchers that shot at the creature, but they misled the story so badly, and he basically him and his friend chased the creature as it flew in the air, but the horses were getting spooked and turned around on them, and they couldn't get it back to where they were chasing the creature, and they were a little frightened too. They never shot it down, they never killed it, and it flew away. So basically, he's saying that whatever photo that was is staged, but they did actually see this thing and shot at it until their horses freaked out and said, "Hey, man, did you hear this thing can pick up a whale? I'm just a horse."
Why the long face now? Yeah, that would be really interesting if it was a fake picture, but they're like, but we really did see it. It did happen, guys. All right? We just didn't have anything to show for it.
But this old cowboy is saying that they didn't shoot it way before anybody like, "Oh, that's fake picture." You know, because the fake part of it has come more in recent times, probably.
That's true, yeah.
So that kind of
Interesting.
maybe adds a little credibility to the story.
And I love when that happens, Christian.
Right.
It's very rare that you add credibility to stories, but I'm here for it.
Now that we've gone through some Thunderbird stories, what are your thoughts?
I like it.
Do you
I know some stories were like spiritual too, like especially what was it? Was it Sedona? Didn't we have a Thunderbird story from Sedona or something like that? It was like a spiritual experience where this person was standing on a cliff and they see in the distance like a weird vortex almost swirling in the sky and a bird. And then like they go to a gift shop or something and the lady was like, "Oh yeah, we've heard that before." I want to say it was Sedona, but one of those mysterious places that is known for like vortices and whatnot. But yeah, man, I love Thunderbird stories. I
loved them since I was a little kid, even though these days I don't quite believe quite the same way.
Yeah.
I do believe there were large birds. I do believe that in an evolutionary way, we have a fear of those things. And this fear comes from the fact that as you're walking, just in regular life. If you have a shadow pass over you from above, there are some people that believe that that's a remnant of evolution from back when we were basically, and I'll say this, Scott, you don't need to comment on it.
I can say it real quick.
We know exactly what you think
They
about
could just
this.
be startled from something randomly flying above them.
No, I'm just saying as far as an evolutionary trigger in our body.
Okay.
And like I said, we know your views on this. You don't have to argue it.
Hey, everyone is
This is a theory.
It's fine.
That back when we were monkeys, those big eagles
There we go.
were hunting us from above. So if we saw a shadow, we had to hide, just like any other, like a prairie dog or any other creature that's small now, a squirrel.
Yeah.
Or in the case when I was in Homer
Yes.
for a hockey tournament, I was down there eating dinner. Freaking eagle swooped out of the air and took out a seagull and did exactly what it should have done. Killed it.
Okay.
So
Can I take that and just say that wouldn't you be startled by, if you're not expecting a shadow to randomly fly over you, couldn't you also just be startled by the fact that you saw something on the ground that shouldn't have been there in a split second, fly from left to right, up, down, whatever the fuck it was, and you're like, oh God, what was that? Then you look up, like, where the fuck does the monkey part ever come into that? Like, what a strange grasp.
because we have certain triggers in us, like
Says who?
if you go to places
Okay.
like say Alaska,
Sure.
where there's no snakes,
Gotcha.
indigenous Alaskan natives
Are afraid of snakes.
have had, which everybody is.
Sure. Yeah.
But the theory
They're the worst.
behind that is it could have been that we were hunted by snakes, which we probably were. We've seen pictures of
We've
pretty
talked
big.
about it in the dragon episode,
Yeah,
or dinosaur episode, whatever the fuck it was.
You know, in recent times, we've seen people cut out of large pythons.
I haven't witnessed that in recent times, but I don't usually sort that out. Like, I'm not searching for that.
I try to avoid that, but sometimes, you know,
I made a big enough mistake. Yeah.
The internet can sometimes traumatize you.
And it does.
Yeah.
Every single day.
I've gotten better at it.
Yeah.
So I can avoid that. But either way, Thunderbirds probably aren't a thing nowadays. I don't understand where they would live. Of course, we live in Alaska where it's vast, and
Very
there
vast.
are other vast places. But a lot of the vastness in Alaska is pretty inhospitable to animals.
Sure.
Having flown up to Prudhoe Bay, which is in the Arctic Circle.
Now, let me ask you this. Have you ever seen a Thunderbird while flying up to Prudhoe Bay?
I have not. And
Damn it.
And I promise you, I get a window seat. I look out that window for strange things.
Where is it?
And basically, those mountains are so snow and ice covered, no animal really lives there. I'm sure there's a couple little things here and there, but there's no trees, there's no bushes. Sometimes in the summer, you'll get the grasses and stuff at the base of them.
Sure.
But there's a lot of snow up there all year round. So it's hard for me to imagine, but also the earlier Alaskan stories said these things were flying north. Where were they going?
Where were they going? Canada, no doubt. What's up? Christina, how you doing?
Could be those mythic portals up near Nome.
There's a lot of weird shit in Alaska.
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting that every podcast in the world in our genre has covered the Black Triangle or Pyramid or whatever of Alaska, and we haven't even talked about it?
I think we talked about it we talked about the Alaskan Triangle early on.
The triangle, but not the pyramid.
Right.
The alleged pyramid that is out here. Yeah, every paranormal podcast I follow, I'm like, yeah, wow, oh, the Alaska Pyramid. Interesting.
Yeah, we probably will at some point, but
it's weird that I haven't even looked into it. Well, it's a fascinating claim. I haven't seen one, but okay.
We talked about the one that I think it's a pyramid or the mountain base that
Antarctica.
No, there's one up here too.
They're all over, Christian. Open your eyes.
They're not, but they could be.
Weirder things have happened, but not on this show.
So, are you a believer?
Yeah. That is what I'm best known for on this podcast, Christian. Whether or not it is a flesh and blood physical thing or some kind of weird, creepy Dementor type beast, I have no idea. But I believe that people saw what they saw. And granted, some of those stories sounded way more like folklore and less like a true story. But again, I wasn't there. Just like you weren't there 100 billion years ago or whatever. So,
if it's humans involved, we're going to maybe 10,000 years ago.
Yes, of course.
And then humans were around before that, but not the written word that we can prove.
Oh my goodness.
Not that we can prove.
Somebody stop this podcast. It's over. It's over for us.
Well, another thing that we can talk about with these legends and myths is these are oral histories that could have changed a little bit throughout the years.
Okay.
So it's hard to sometimes trace back to the exact things in any of them, whether it's here in Alaska or any part of the world when you go back that far with oral traditions. There's probably some things in there that are from that time period, and there might be some things that were added later on, as we do with stories these days, to make them more entertaining.
Absolutely.
Who knows?
I wasn't there.
Until we find the bones of these large birds that
Smithsonian,
existed
listen
with
up.
human.
Where are the bones? It's fine.
So
I've run the where the bones bit out a bit this episode, but it happens, and that's fine. I think we're done.
I think we are.
I think we're done. And I think you guys are done. It'd be weird for you to just sit here after the episode is done, unless you're wanting to ponder and be like, hey, what am I going to say on their social medias when I follow them in a few minutes? How am I going to word this great review on Apple Podcasts for this amazing show that I've listened to for the first time and or the 100,000th time and still haven't reviewed for some reason? Isn't that? It's fine, guys. I'm not here to judge you.
They might be thinking about how they're going to tell us their Thunderbird story about the time they saw.
We're ready and willing to hear that and take that information in. And who knows, maybe we'll make a video of it. If you guys have seen Thunderbirds or believe you have seen Thunderbirds or whatever these things may be, send that story into the gang at thefreakydeaky.com.
You know another thing I want to mention as you're doing this?
Is it the hot sauce again? It's fine. We'll talk about that more later.
Yeah, we'll talk about the hot sauce in a minute.
Okay.
We'll probably come back to Thunderbird stories because we only touched like a small portion of the world.
And we want to touch the rest of it.
Yeah, we didn't even go into like Canada and places where they've been legendary. So we'll come back to it. Okay, on to the hot sauce.
No, that was all I wanted to mention was that it was just repeating something.
We got hot sauce.
I'm tired. I was at the fair for 6 hours again. Same as last week, if you can't imagine.
Yeah.
And as I was leaving, I saw on that weird stage on the entrance area with like some weird pop group, 3 girls.
There's something going on there with some manufactured band that we have in Alaska that's like the bands they have in the lore
group.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah. It was. I literally looked at China. I was like, hey, look, it's Destiny's Mild. And she was like, what? And I'm like, okay, let's just get out of here.
What's funny is I saw Destiny's Child
with China
at the fair.
At the fair. Wow. Bringing it back around. We'll see you later, guys. I don't know what's coming up next week because we don't live in the future. Unlike last week when we did. You guys can figure out that. And that's fine. See you later. Yep. We did it.